Welcome to Finance with Fairbanks, where real-world finance comes to life. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hello and welcome to another episode. My name is Dr. Fairbanks, and today we are going to continue to work time value of money calculations. Specifically, we're going to work with different types of loans: pure discount loans, interest-only loans, amortized loans. And we will also learn how to use the interest rate conversion worksheet within our financial calculator. Let's go ahead and begin. Sam plans to borrow money and repay the lender a lump sum payment of $15,000 at the end of the year. Calculate the amount he borrowed, assuming an interest rate of 9%, compounded weekly. This is very similar to a problem that we worked back in Unit 2.1. In Unit 2.1, we learned how to shift a lump sum cash flow forward and backward in time, meaning we learned how to take a cash flow today and send it to anywhere on the timeline in the future, and we learned how to take a cash flow sometime out in the future and bring it back to today. It really isn't that different from what we were doing in Unit 2.1. Now we just have multiple compounding periods per year. So in this example, our compounding periods per year, because it's weekly, is going to be 52. If I were to draw the timeline, today is obviously time 0. I'm not going to put 1 here because it's now 52 compounding periods within that 1 year. It's now 52 ticks on the timeline. I want to make that very clear. And the cash flow that he's going to have to pay back the lender at the end, which will be an outflow, is $15,000. We'll set this up with our time value of money inputs. Remember what I said in lecture, and that is when you have multiple compounding periods per year, several items have to match. And what I mean by that is N, IY, and PMT all have to be in the same compounding periods per year. That means I can't put 1 in for N, I have to put 52. That's 1 year times 52 weeks within that year. That's 52 periods. In this particular example, there is no payment, so we'll put 0, but if there was, it would be a weekly payment because everything here has to match in the periods. Now, when I plug in my interest rate of 9%, I can't just put 9 because that's an APR, that's an annual percentage rate. I now have to adjust it and turn it into a period rate. In this particular example, it's going to be a weekly period rate because I'm going to divide it by 52. We are trying to calculate how much he actually borrowed today, and we know he will have to repay $15,000 at the end of the year, 52 weeks from now. Let's go ahead and use our financial calculator. Here's our calculator. We'll go ahead and clear our time value of money inputs. We'll take 52 for N. We'll take 9 divided by 52 for IY. Oops, forgot to hit equals. Now we can hit IY. So the weekly rate is 0.17307. We'll put 0 in for the payment. 15,000, hit that plus minus key for my future value. Compute the present value. It appears that Sam borrowed $13,710.03. All right, let's go to the next question. Not So Fair Loans is offering a special 2-year loan, and the company will loan you $2,500 today in exchange for $3,500 2 years from now. Calculate the APR on this loan. Once again, let's draw the timeline. Great thing to do here. Notice that we are going to receive $2,500 today. That's a time 0 cash flow. That's an inflow. And then we are going to pay back $3,500 exactly 2 years from today. We want to know the implied annual percentage rate on this loan. Okay, my N is 2. There's no multiple compounding periods in this example. The compounding periods per year is 1. This is annual compounding. Our interest rate is what we're trying to find, and that will be an annual percentage rate. The present value is a positive $2,500. There is no periodic payment. He's not making a payment, or the person borrowing this money is not making a payment at the end of year 1, but they will make one payment at the end of year 2. That will include the principal and the interest. That is what a pure discount loan is. A great example of a pure discount loan would be a treasury bill. We'll get to talk about different types of fixed income securities in our next unit. Let's go ahead and use our financial calculator. 2 for N, 2,500 for my present value, 0 for my payment, negative 3,500 for my future value. Now keep in mind, if I forget to put the negative sign there on my future value because our cash flows have to have a story, this calculator will not give you an answer. We're going to compute the implied interest rate here on this loan. If they were a bank, they would have to quote this loan at 18.32%. And that's per year. A little bit less than probably a credit card, but still quite a very high interest rate. Hence the name Not So Fair Loans. All right, next question. Kingston can afford $425 per month. The bank offers him a loan with a 5.99% APR. Calculate the amount of car he can afford. Now it's implied here that this is monthly compounding. That means our compounding periods per year are 12. Again, when we're dealing with our time value of money input parameters, that means that we need to adjust the N and the IY. If he plans to borrow this money for 4 years, we're going to multiply by the compounding periods per year. That will result in 48 months on this loan. Our IY is going to be 5.99%. Again, we're going to turn that into a monthly interest rate by dividing it by 12. We are trying to find the present value of this potential car loan. He believes he can afford $425 payments, $425 per month for his monthly payment. And hopefully the future value of all loans is 0. We'll take 48 for N, we'll type 5.99 and divide it by 12 to find our monthly rate. We'll plug that into our IY. He plans to pay $425 a month. We'll plug that into our payment. And again, hopefully the future value of all loans is 0. We'll go ahead and compute the present value. It appears that he can afford a car in the amounts of $18,100.17. Josh plans to purchase a new SUV for $85,000. The dealership offers a promotion to buy the car at 2.9% APR compounded monthly for 60 months. Assuming he puts $20,000 down, calculate his monthly payment. The first thing that we need to do is we need to determine the amount of the loan. Assuming this $85,000 is his out-the-door number, the loan amount will equal his out-the-door number, tax, title, and license, minus his down payment, and he will take a loan for $65,000. That's the amount that he's going to borrow from the dealership under their promotional program. We'll go ahead and put our time value of money inputs here. It is compounded monthly, so our CY here is 12. He plans to borrow this money for 60 months, so he will make 60 monthly payments on an ordinary annuity basis. We're trying to calculate the value of his payment. We're going to take that promotional rate of 2.9%. We're going to divide it by 12 so we can convert it to a monthly interest rate. And again, at the end of 60 months, hopefully the car is paid off. He is going to borrow $65,000. We found that number by taking the $85,000 minus his down payment. Let's go ahead and calculate his monthly payment in this example. 60 for N. We'll take 2.9 and divide it by 12 to convert it to a monthly rate. We'll plug that into the IY. That's 0.2416% per month. 0 for the future value. And again, he plans to borrow today $65,000. That's what we found earlier. We'll go ahead and compute his monthly payment. His monthly payment in this example will be $1,165.08. Cashton owes $10,000 on a credit card with 11.9% APR compounded monthly. How much more will it cost him to pay off this balance if he makes monthly payments of $150 rather than making monthly payments of $200? Assume no additional charges will be made to the credit card. We're going to set up our TVM inputs 2 times. Under the first scenario, again, we're trying to figure out how long it's going to take him to pay off this credit card under these different situations. So the answer that we're looking for is N. We know the APR, which is 11.99%, but it is compounded monthly, so we are going to divide this by 12. He's also making monthly payments. That means when I calculate N, I will be finding the number of months, not the number of years. The present value, or his current balance, is $10,000. The future value, hopefully, of the credit card is 0. And in this first scenario, he's going to pay $150 per month. We'll have identical inputs on the right-hand side, or in the second setup. The only difference being he'll pay an extra $50 per month. The question is, how much sooner can he pay off this credit card if he pays that extra $50 per month? Another question that we can ask and answer here is, how much extra interest does he pay by paying $50 less per month? Take 11.99, divide it by 12. That is my monthly period rate, or interest rate, on this credit card. He has borrowed or accrued an account balance of $10,000. He plans to pay $150 per month, and he wants to have a balance of 0. We'll go ahead and compute the N here. That looks like it will take him 110.333, or round that to 4 months. Now, in the second scenario, the only difference again is the payment. So we'll use the trick that we learned in the last video, and we will only change our payment input here. So we're going to type 200 plus minus payment, recompute the N. Notice that it takes fewer months. It should obviously take fewer months because you're making a greater payment to the bill. And it appears that he will pay this bill off now in 69.635 months. Obviously much quicker in terms of the payoff. Now the question that we want to answer is, how much extra interest does he pay by only paying $150 per month? What we're going to do is we're going to calculate the total dollars paid on the loan or on the credit card under each scenario. I'm going to call this A, and I'm going to call this B so that we can keep it straight. Under scenario A, let's calculate the total amount that he would pay on this credit card. I'm going to take the original payment of $150, recompute the N so that we have all of the decimals there. That's the 110.3337541. I'm going to multiply that number by 150. This is an approximation here. And we can see that under scenario A, he would pay $16,550.06 in total. Let's do this one. He's obviously going to pay less in total because he's paying it off much sooner, so less interest can accrue on his bill or on his credit card. We'll go ahead and type in that $200 plus minus for the payment, recompute the N. That's the same number of months that we found earlier. We will now multiply that by 200. And it appears in this scenario he pays $13,926.95. So the extra interest paid is simply the difference between those two numbers. I'm going to put a minus sign in front of that. I'm going to hit the plus sign, and then I'm going to type in that first number that we found, the $16,550.06. And you can see that the total difference in the interest is $2,623.11. That's how much extra interest he will pay. Not only that, it'll take him much, much longer to pay off the credit card in this particular example. Okay, next question. Fair & Co. plans to borrow $180,000 for 3 years at 6%, compounded annually. The principal is to be repaid in equal annual payments over the life of the loan. Calculate the total payment due at the end of the second year. Well, what we're going to do instead of answering that question exactly, we're going to build the entire amortization schedule in this framework. This is a different type of amortized loan because in this particular example, we're making equal payments or equal principal reductions each year in the loan, which means our payment is not going to be constant like it would be in a home loan. Let's go ahead and put time or years here because it is annual in this framework. We're going to put 1, 2, 3. We're going to have the beginning balance. So at the beginning of year 1, what is the balance of his loan? Well, the beginning balance at the beginning of year 1 is the loan itself. We're going to make equal principal reduction payments. So in the first year, at the end of the first year, when this company makes its first payment, they're going to pay $60,000 towards the principal, but they're going to do that in every single period. Then we're going to calculate the interest, and rather than using, our time value money inputs, in this scenario, what we're going to do is we are going to multiply the interest rate times the beginning balance. Now we can already find the end balance here because the end balance is simply the beginning balance of the loan minus the principal reduction from the payment that was made. So at the end of year 1, the company will owe $120,000. That's the end balance. Well, the end balance at the end of year 1 is the beginning balance at the end of year 2. That just maps all the way over to here. We reduce the principal by another $60,000 at the end of year 2. That's how much the company will owe. That's the end balance at the end of year 2, which is also the beginning balance at the end of, is the beginning balance at the beginning of year 3. We're going to reduce the principal one more time by $60,000, and the balance of the loan will be 0 at the end. Unfortunately, this loan does have an APR, and that APR is 6%. With that being a 6% APR, you will have some interest that will accrue in each year that will make our payment greater than $60,000. Let's go ahead and use our financial calculator. We can take we're going to take that $180,000, that's the beginning balance at the beginning of year 1, and we are going to multiply that by 0.06. That's the amount of interest that would accrue on this loan by the time they make their first payment at the end of year 1. That means that the firm will pay $70,800 for their first annual payment in this example. Let's go back. Now, in year 2, the beginning balance was $120,000. Once again, we're going to multiply that by 6%. And the amount of interest that accrues on the loan in the second year is $7,200. That means that their payment that they're making at the end of year 2, the answer to the question, is $67,200. We'll go ahead and finish this example and this amortization sheet. We'll take the $60,000 that is due at the beginning of year 3. We will multiply that by 6%, and $3,600 will accrue in interest. That means that their final payment made for this loan would be $63,600. Next question. Cashton plans to save $300 a month starting 1 month from today. His employer will match 75 cents for every dollar that he saves. If he works for the next 40 years and he can earn a 7% APR compounded monthly on his retirement savings, how much will he have in his account when he retires? Hopefully you realize that this is a future value question. We're trying to calculate the future value. The difficult part of this question is we need to determine the exact payment that is being made each month. To do that, we need to find out the exact dollars that the firm is matching. But let's go ahead and set up our time value of money inputs. All right, the number of years is 40, but this is in a monthly framework, so we're going to multiply by 12. That results in 480 months of working, also 480 months of making contributions to his retirement account. The interest rate that he plans to earn is 7%. We'll go ahead and divide that by 12. We need to convert it to a monthly rate. He doesn't have anything saved today, so the present value is 0. The payment that he's going to make is he's going to make a payment of $300, and his employer is going to match that 75 cents for every dollar. So we're going to take the $300 that he's contributing, and we're going to multiply that by 75%, or 0.75. What we will find is that his monthly contribution, his contribution plus the employer match, results in a total deposit of $525 per month into the account. We'll go ahead and put a minus sign because that's technically a cash outflow. And when we calculate the future value of his account, it will be a positive number. We'll clear out the time value of money parameters, put 480 for my number of periods, 7 divided by 12 for my monthly interest rate, 525 negative for my monthly payment. That's again his contribution plus his employer's match. We will compute the future value. The future value of his account is $1,378,027.03. Not bad for only saving $525 a month for 480 months. Okay, Fair Computers offers a new laptop for $3,000. The credit terms are for 48 months at $80 a month. Calculate the quoted APR on this loan. We'll go ahead and we'll set up the time value of money inputs. Hopefully you realize by the wording of this question that the compounding periods per year is 12. N is going to be 48. My IY is what I'm trying to calculate, but keep in mind when I calculate IY, I'm going to be finding a monthly interest rate, which we will have to convert to an APR. The present value is what the computer costs. This laptop costs $3,000. The payment will be $80. And the future value which you have to pay on this loan will be 0. Now what I've just done there is I'm going to switch the signs on these cash flows to make it make more sense. We've received the laptop, we can view that as a cash inflow. Then we're going to make monthly payments to Fair Computers for this laptop in the amount of $80 per month. We'll go ahead 48 for N. 3,000 for the present value, negative $80 for the payment, 0 for my future value, compute, IY. Now that is the monthly interest rate. The 1.05628 is the monthly interest rate, but the question is asking us to find the annual percentage rate. So I'm going to multiply that value by 12, and I'm going to find that the implied interest rate on this deal that Fair Computers is offering on this laptop equates to about 12.675% in an APR basis. All right, next question. Sally just won the UT lottery. Congrats, Sally. She can either receive $250,000 for the next 30 years, starting 1 year from today. That's the tell that this is an ordinary annuity. We learned these tricks in the last video. Or she can receive $5 million today. Calculate the interest rate on the annuity option. We'll go ahead and set up our time value of money inputs. Hopefully you realize the compounding periods per year are 1. This is just annual compounding. Okay, so our number of periods is 30 years. Our IY is what we're trying to find. We won't have to do any conversion when we're trying to find this interest rate. The present value is going to be the $5 million that we could accept today. And the payment, the annuitized payment, is $250,000. Once all of those are paid, that lottery payout will have a value of 0. So our future value is 0 here. But I can't plug it in this way. I can't plug in the same sign with these cash flows. My cash flows don't have a story. The calculator won't give me an interest rate. So I have to make up a story. And the story that I'm going to make up is I'm just going to put a minus sign in front of the $5 million. Now, why did I do that? Again, the cash flows have to have a story in order for the interest rate to be calculated with our financial calculator. I could have put the negative on the $250,000. I just elected to put it on the present value. Let's see what interest rate we get on this particular loan. Okay, we're going to plug in 30 years for N, 5 million for present value, 0 for future value, and 250,000 for my payment. We'll go ahead and compute the interest rate. The implied interest rate on this lottery winnings, or the annuitized version of the lottery winnings, is 2.85%. Interestingly, this 2.85% is essentially the rate of indifference. And what that means is if you could earn more than 2.85% on your $5 million, then you would definitely want to take the $5 million today. This obviously ignores any tax implications that's well beyond the scope of this particular question. Lisa plans to save $25 a week for the next 15 years and earn a 3% APR compounded weekly. That's telling me my compounding periods per year is 52. At the end of 15 years, she'll stop investing and her account will start paying an 8% APR compounded annually. So we've got quite the complicated timeline here. We're going to earn 2 different rates. One's going to compound weekly. The other one's going to compound annually. And the question is, how long will it take her to reach $75,000? Okay, this is a 2-step problem. And the first step in this problem is we're going to send this $25 a week contribution to this account out to 15 years, and we're going to see what the value is of the account at that time. Okay, we're going to take 15 times 52. We're going to take the 3% and divide it by 52. She's not making any contributions today. Her payment is going to be $25 per week. Okay, let's use our financial calculator and solve for the future value of this series of cash flows. It's obviously an ordinary annuity. She's making these contributions at the end of every week. We are going to take 15 years times 52 weeks. That's 780 weekly periods. We'll then take the 3% APR, we'll divide it by 52. That's going to be my IY. 0 for the present value, 25 negative for my payments. Compute future value. You can see that the future value of this account is $24,618.04. Now what we want to do in the second step is we want to solve for how much longer it will take for her account to get to $75,000. Now this is on an annual basis, which is really nice. Our IY now is going to be 8%. The present value is the value of the account 15 years from now. We'll go ahead and put a negative sign, assuming she's making this contribution into the account. She's not going to be making any other payments to the account, and she's trying to achieve $75,000 on the balance. And the question is, how long will this take? Since we already have the future value, I'm going to hit the plus minus key. I'm going to store it into my present value now. I'm then going to type 75,000 and hit my FV button, store the 75,000 that she wants. And I'm going to change my interest rate to 8. And then I'm going to recompute the number of periods, specifically the number of years. It looks like it will take 14.365 years. Now what that means, because that's not the answer to the problem is the original 15 years plus these 14.365 years. So the total number of years in this example is the 15 that she spent investing plus the additional 14 that she left the account to accrue interest at 8%. That's a total of 29.365 years. Bear & Co. plans to acquire some land for $2.5 million in exchange for quarterly payments of $95,000 at an interest rate of 8%, compounded quarterly, although it's not specified in the question. Calculate the number of years it will take the firm to pay off this loan. Now we're looking for the number of years. That's what we're looking for. Our interest rate is 8%, but we're going to divide that by 4 because this is the number of quarters, right? That means when we solve for n, we're actually going to be solving for the number of quarters, and we'll have to adjust it for years. They're buying some land. That would be an outflow. We'll go ahead and make that one negative. And then they're going to receive payments, quarterly payments of $95,000. Oops. That's a 0.00. And the future value of this will obviously be 0. Let's go ahead and use our financial calculators. We'll take the 8, we'll divide it by 4, convert it to a quarterly rate. That's a 2% quarterly rate. The amount that they are paying for the land is $2.5 million, and then they'll receive $95,000 on the payment, 0 on the future value, and we'll go ahead and compute the number of quarters. The number of quarters is 37.73 quarters, but we want to know the number of years. So let's go ahead and divide this by 4 to convert it to years, and what we find is it will take about 9.43 years for this firm to pay off, the value of the land. Now we're into the interest rate conversion, and this is where we have 3 different types of interest rates. We have what is known as the period rate. We've been using that frequently throughout many of these problems here today. We have the APR, the annual percentage rate. Remember, this is the quoted rate that banks, by consumer lending laws, have to quote their loans at. And then we have the effective annual rate, or EAR, for this loan. That's what you actually pay or earn with the compounding periods per year. Okay, Assuming a bank offers a loan for 7.5%, this would be the APR, compounded monthly, calculate the effective annual rate on the loan. Essentially, calculate the EAR. This is where we're going to use the ICONV worksheet. It stands for Interest Rate Conversion Worksheet in our financial calculator. But before we do that, let's review the inputs in this worksheet. Okay? If we go into the calculator and the ICONV is right above the number 2, I'm going to hit the second key and 2. That's going to take me into this worksheet. We have NOM, stands for nominal, unfortunately. EFF stands for effective. And then we have C divided by Y, the compounding periods per year. Now, how does that translate into what I wrote up there in the far right corner of the screen? Nominal is the APR. Never plug the period rate into the nominal rate. We always want to plug the APR into the nominal part of our calculator. The EFF is the EAR that we learn in the chapter of the textbook. So that's what EFF is, and then we already know what compounding periods per year is. CY. Now let's convert this loan to an effective rate. What we're going to do is we're going to set the nominal value equal to 7.5. We will change the compounding periods per year to 12, why 12? Because it has monthly compounding. And then we are going to compute the EFF. And when we do that, that will be the EAR that we're looking for, the effective annual rate. So once again, to get into this worksheet, we're going to hit the second key and then the number 2. We're going to type 7.5 for the nominal rate. We're going to arrow down 2 times. We're going to type 12 and enter for my CY. Arrow back up to EFF and hit compute. We know because of the math that the effective annual rate must be greater than the APR, so the answer has to be greater than 7.5. It is. It's 7.763. Now, we could also solve this using the mathematical equation. I'm going to go ahead and show you this. The EAR is simply equal to 1 plus the APR divided by the compounding periods per year, which we'll denote as M, like the textbook, raised to the number of M's, or compounding periods per year, minus 1. Plugging in our values that we learned here, 1 plus 0.075 divided by 12, all of this raised to a value of 12, and then subtract 1. Once again, we can do this in the financial calculator. We'll go 1 plus, open parentheses, 0.075 divided by 12. That's going to equal 1.00625. We're going to hit the Y to the X key, type 12 and equals, and then we're going to subtract 1. And we did, in fact, find the exact same answer, 7.763 for the EAR. All right, 2 more questions. A loan that compounds weekly has an EAR of 11.15%. Calculate the APR and the period rate on this loan. Using our interest rate conversion worksheet, we will go ahead and enter the EAR in the EFF as 11.15. We will scroll down to the compounding periods per year, and we will change this to 52 because it's weekly compounding. We will go back up till we find the nominal. And once we find the nominal, we will compute it. That is the APR. Okay, let's do this. We'll go back into the worksheet. We can go ahead and clear the work by hitting second CE. That clears whatever the memory was. We'll scroll down to the EFF, and the interest rate here was 11.15, and enter. Arrow down to the CY. We'll convert that to 52 and enter. and we'll go to the nominal and hit compute. We know that the nominal or APR must be less than the effective annual rate. We find that the effective annual rate is 10.5818%. Now, to find the period rate, what we're going to do is we're going to divide the APR by 52. Now, why are we dividing it by 52? Because we want to convert it to a weekly interest rate. From the financial calculator, I'll just take this answer, divide it by 52, and we get a weekly rate of 0.2035. That's 0.2035% per week. Now, in terms of solving for the APR from an EAR using the math, we can also do this. The equation is 1 plus the effective annual rate raised to the 1 over m, the compounding periods per year, minus 1. That means we're going to take 1.1115, raise it to the 1 over 52 minus 1. That's going to find the period rate. That's going to find the 0.2035, at which time then we will multiply it by 52, and we should get the APR of 10.5818%. Let's see if this works in the calculator. Okay, let's plug in the numbers. 1.1115 raised to the 1 divided by 52. That gives us 1.00203. Subtracting the 1, that is our period rate that we just found. We will then multiply that by 52, and there is our APR. It's 10.5818%. Okay, last question here. First Bank offers a loan with a quarterly rate of 2.25%. So this particular question is a bit interesting because they're giving us, for the first time, they're giving us the period rate. We are now tasked with finding and calculating the APR and EAR on this particular loan. We know it's quarterly, so my compounding periods per year are 4. We know our period rate, which is quarterly, is 2.25%. So my APR is simply 4 times 2.25%, or 9%. We will now use our interest rate conversion worksheet, and we will convert that APR of 9% to an effective annual rate. That will be my EAR. And the compounding periods per year is 4. Okay, let's go into the worksheet here. Go ahead and clear this workout. And we'll put 9 and enter. We'll arrow down, we'll change the CY to 4. We'll go back up to the EFF, or the effective annual rate, and we'll compute it. And the answer here is 9.308%. All right, folks, that's it for this episode. See you in the next video. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye.